Good morning, everybody. This is Michelle on a Wellness Wednesday. If you can hear me, give me a thumbs up or a heart. Today, we're actually talking about the art of self-love. And I actually say art because it brings to mind, the process of an artist. And I see somebody's on. Hello. Let me know you're here. Give me a thumbs up or a heart. So as I was saying, I called it, hi honey, I called it Laura, I called it the art of self-love because I often think about how it takes time to create art. So creating art is a process of kind of unfolding the truth and the beauty that's there. So if you think about an artist and, a sculptor, and they have a piece of stone, and hi honey, hi Deanie, and it looks, it's a stone, and it takes process, it takes time, it takes love, it takes attention, it takes nurturing to basically unfold the truth and the beauty of that stone and to create that art. So that's one of the reasons I called it the art of self-love. I want to begin just by talking about the definition of love. So I thought, I'm going to look in the Webster's dictionary and see just what they have for a definition of love. And to me, it felt a little bit limiting, but I'm going to tell you what that is. So number one, they have that as a strong affection for another, arising out of kinship or personal ties. Example, a mother and your child, or a father and their child. And number two was attraction based on sexual desire, affection, and tenderness felt by lovers. I was like, okay, well, I guess that could be called love. Affection based on admiration or benevolence or common interests. I was like, interesting. And then the other definition was a warm attachment, enthusiasm, devotion. And then I was like, oh, I like that. So what would happen if we use that definition, warm attachment, enthusiasm, devotion, and we actually turned that around and gave that to ourselves? So I actually find most of the definitions just limiting. And so what does it really mean to love? What does love really mean? There's so many different types of love. You can say that you love food. You can say that you love your animal, another person, a flower. And then there's divine love. So I often think about divine love and really what divine love actually means. So I think about divine love and loving without any expectations of getting anything back, just holding that place of love for another human being or another individual or an animal, nature. There's a divinity in that type of love. And then there's also there's a loving with non-attachment. And again, that's without any expectations of what's coming back. So I think about that. So just the concept of self-love really is a deep acceptance for ourselves that grows from our actions. So these actions support our physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual growth. And then fostering the relationship with ourselves where we actually care enough to want to do those actions. So it's kind of, it's at two sides to the coin, right? Do you love yourself enough to support yourself in your personal growth, spiritual growth, emotional and mental growth? And if you're doing those things, then you're actually giving yourself self-love. So again, those two sides to the coin. So my hope is always that we have an innate sense that loving ourselves can also be a little bit about self-preservation. Sometimes it takes time to discover this in ourselves because we often look outside of ourselves for our value and our worth. I know in my life, this is something that I often have done, looking outside of myself for love. If I'm, if someone's giving me love, that means obviously I have value. Obviously I have worth. But the precariousness of that is that people can take away their love. And then where is your self-worth? And then where is your value? So yeah, sooner or later, that way of thinking of, looking outside of ourselves for love is going to fail. That's why developing our own ability to honestly and truly love ourselves is really such a gift. And it has taken me a very, very long time to actually get to the place that I can honestly say that my love for myself is at such a level that I feel like I no longer really need validation outside of myself. I mean, of course it's beautiful and relationships are beautiful and foundational and needed. But I don't any longer look at my worth in relationship to somebody else, how somebody else sees me, or how somebody else is able to meet me, or how somebody else is able to love me. And I guess my wish is for everybody to be able to get to that point or nurture that side of yourself where you're able to say, I do love myself. One thing I actually also want to mention in relationship to self-love and emotions and feelings, that the emotion part of the brain, where you feel your emotions, and actually where you feel your pain in the brain is actually in the same area. So this is really a lot of dialogue that's been talked about recently in the last, kind of 5 to 10 years, where they're looking at the relationship to pain, chronic pain, depression, anxiety, how that presents in the body, and how that relates to your feelings and your emotions. So if you're doing a lot of negative self-talk, that's going to create a lot of emotion. So those feelings are going to create emotion. Those emotions can be, varied, sadness, hopelessness, inability to find joy. So there's lots of connection with what's happening physically in the body and what's happening with your emotions and your feelings. So I just wanted to really make that clear, that what we tell ourselves, we actually become. What we say to ourselves, we actually embody. There's never any separation from who we are and what we think or what we feel and what we believe. So I just want to give 6 ways that we can actually work towards developing self-love. So one of those ways is just becoming more mindful and learning to ask ourselves how we feel. So on any given day, how am I feeling today? How does my body feel today? Am I noticing that I'm carrying maybe extra tension somewhere? Last week, I talked about the chakras and the different energy centers in the body. Not speaking your truth, how that can actually create, that feeling of a lump in your throat. Not listening or giving away your power. not following your will, that can give you a stomach ache. It actually can. You can feel that knot in your stomach. So becoming mindful of how you feel in your body, what you're telling yourself, what messages you're giving yourself. So that's number one, just becoming mindful. And number two, asking yourself actually what you need as opposed to what you want. So those two things are very different. You know, we can want many, many things, and there's actually nothing wrong with that. But really taking a step back and saying, what is it that I need today? What is it that I need to feel complete and to feel whole and to feel like I'm honoring myself and actually loving myself? So I think that's a very important question to ask. You guys can hear me okay, correct? I think you guys can hear me. I'm hoping you can hear me. Number three, if you can't hear me, let me know, please. I've been talking a long time if you can't hear me. Number three in ways to develop self-love is practicing self-care. So daily routines. One of the things I shared on my Facebook business page and also in the group, in the Rise Above, Holistic Healing for Chronic Pain group, was a daily list of daily routines. So I really think daily routines is really important. Getting up in the morning and having a set of routines where you're actually giving yourself love. You know, whether that's dry skin brushing, or in Ayurveda what we call abhyanga, which is body oiling, doing your daily meditation, starting off with maybe a glass of hot water with lemon. Just these little tiny things that you can do where you're actually giving yourself some love and some self-care. So number four, setting boundaries. So important. Something that, again, as I get older, I feel like I'm much able to kind of set my boundaries in a very clear and loving way. You don't have to be ever rude or mean when you're setting your boundaries. So really that's about learning to say no without guilt, or really without having to, backpedal and explain yourself. Just being able to set your clear boundaries, what feels good for you, what does not feel good for you. If you can't do something, if you're pushing yourself too far, if you have 100 things on your plate and you're trying to do it all, and somebody else, another friend comes in and says, oh, hey, can you do this for me? And you're like, oh God, I can't. But then you say yes. That's actually not setting very clear boundaries. So just something to keep in mind when you're trying to develop your self-love. Number five is protect yourself by respecting yourself. So, what type of friends do you have in your life? What type of people do you have in your life? Do you feel that the people in your life are taking advantage of you, or not respecting you, or maybe, saying mean things to you, but you're allowing that to kind of go on and not really protecting yourself, or again, setting those boundaries. So I think that's an important aspect of developing self-love, is protecting yourself from things in the world that maybe don't serve you, and respecting yourself enough where you can say, no, that's not good for me. No, I don't want to be in that situation, or no, I'm not going to put myself in that. And number six, and I really think this one is huge, and I think it's actually maybe sometimes for people it can be a difficult thing to do, but such an important practice, and that is to forgive yourself. So we are human, we are fallible, we always at some point in our life will make a mistake, or many. So being able to forgive yourself for the mistakes that you've made. I'm always working on this. I'm actually really working on this now. And what does it really mean to forgive yourself? So if a friend if you were with a friend and they had said, you know, hey, I really messed up and I did this and oh my God, I can't believe I did that. And, you know, I feel terrible. And what would you say to them? I know that as a good friend, you would make sure that you told them that everybody makes mistakes, not to be so hard on yourself, that to be able to, you know, if you need to rectify the problem, then rectify the problem, move on, and forgive yourself for the mistake that you made. If you're in a situation and you've been in a situation for a really long time, and maybe you finally get out of that situation, to be able to forgive yourself for actually allowing yourself to be in that situation to begin with. So the practice of forgiveness, I think, is really, really essential for developing self-love. I think that's all I'm going to be talking about. I think that's all I'm going to be saying today. It's a little bit shorter, you know, not too long. If you have any questions, just make a comment or ask me a question. I am going to be saving this live on my Facebook page and also on my group. So if you want to get the dialogue going, let's get the dialogue going. I love you. Mwah. Thank you for joining, and I'll see you next week for another Wellness Wednesday. Have a beautiful day, you guys. Bye-bye.